The mansion of Lady Aria stood like a shining jewel on the alien city's highest hill. Its walls were carved from silver stone, its windows glowing with soft blue light. Every corner spoke of wealth, power, and respect. Servants moved quickly through the halls, carrying trays of exotic fruits and rare drinks. Yet for all its beauty, the mansion felt empty. The silence inside was heavy, like a shadow that no light could chase away. In the deepest room of the mansion sat Aria's only daughter, Lyra. She was young, bright, and gentle, but her body betrayed her. Since birth, her legs had not moved. No matter how advanced the alien healers, no matter how much money was spent, she remained bound to her floating chair. Her eyes, however, told another story. They were full of life, curiosity, and longing. She dreamed of running through gardens, of dancing under the stars, of walking beside her mother. But these dreams stayed locked inside her heart. Lady Aria was known across the stars as one of the wealthiest mothers in the galaxy. She owned ships, companies, and entire lands. Yet she could not give her daughter the one thing she needed most. Her heart broke each day as she watched Lyra smile bravely, hiding her pain. Aria held banquets for allies, meetings with powerful leaders, and visits from doctors. All promised cures, all failed. Hope had become a cruel stranger in that mansion. Every evening ended with the same sight, Aria weeping alone, Lyra staring at the stars through her window. One day, something unusual happened. Among the new workers hired for the estate was a human. He was quiet, dressed simply, and carried no grand tools. He worked as a repairman, fixing broken machines and cleaning old systems. The alien staff looked down on him, whispering that humans were weak, simple, and unworthy of such a rich home. But Aria allowed him to stay, seeing no harm in a man worker. She did not know that his arrival would change everything. The human's name was Daniel, though few cared to ask. He moved through the mansion with calm steps, fixing what others ignored. He showed patience even when insulted. His eyes were steady, his hands gentle. One evening, while repairing Lyra's floating chair, Daniel noticed her watching him. Unlike the others, she did not laugh at him. Instead, she asked questions about his home, his people, and why he looked so calm. Daniel smiled and answered in simple words. He spoke of Earth, a place of struggle but also of resilience. He told her that sometimes strength came not from machines, but from the will to keep trying. Lyra listened closely, her heart touched by his words. For the first time in many years, she felt a strange warmth. Daniel's presence was different from the doctors and servants. He did not pity her, nor did he treat her as fragile. He looked at her as if she were capable, as if she held strength inside herself. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She kept thinking of the human's steady eyes and his quiet confidence. Somewhere deep inside, a small seed of hope began to grow again. The next morning, Lady Aria saw her daughter smiling while speaking to Daniel. She was surprised, for it had been long since she saw Lyra so alive in conversation. Aria felt torn. Could a simple human, a worker of no status, truly bring joy to her daughter? She dismissed the thought, telling herself it was only a moment of distraction. Yet the image of her daughter's bright face stayed in her mind all day. Days turned into weeks. Daniel continued his quiet work. Lyra often sought him out, asking about Earth, about humans, about the way they healed wounds not only of the body, but of the spirit. Aria grew curious but remained cautious. Her wealth and pride warned her not to trust a human with such matters, but her heart, the heart of a mother, whispered otherwise. Each evening as silence returned to the mansion, Aria, could this human hold the key to the miracle she had prayed for all her life? The halls of the mansion still shone, the servants still hurried, the ships still came and went, but beneath the surface, change had begun. The silence of sorrow was breaking, hope, fragile and small, was stirring once more, and in the heart of Lady Aria, a question burned quietly. Was the answer to her daughter's suffering not in wealth, not in alien science, but in the hands of a human? Daniel's presence in the mansion grew harder to ignore. He was quiet, yet his work never failed. Machines that had been broken for years hummed back to life under his touch. Doors that screeched for decades slid open smoothly after he worked on them. The alien staff began to whisper differently now. Some said he was lucky, some said he carried old human tricks, but no one could deny that things were changing around him. Lyra noticed it most of all. Every day she waited for him to pass by her chamber. When he stopped to adjust her floating chair, she asked more questions. He spoke of Earth's storms and how humans learned to stand after each disaster. He spoke of soldiers who lost their legs but learned to walk again. He spoke of mothers who carried hope even when medicine had failed. His words were not full of fancy science or alien terms. They were simple, yet they burned like fire in Lyra's heart. One evening, Daniel bent down to check her chair. His hand brushed against her leg gently. For a moment, Lyra's eyes widened. She felt something, a faint pulse like a spark in her muscles. She gasped and looked at him, but he only smiled. "You are stronger than you think," he whispered. It was the first time in her life anyone had said those words to her. Not even her mother had dared. Lyra carried that sentence like a hidden treasure. When Lady Arya entered the room later, she saw her daughter glowing with excitement. "Mother, I felt something," Lyra cried. "My leg moved, I swear it did." Arya's heart skipped. She wanted to believe, but she remembered years of false hope. Doctors had promised miracles and left her broken. Could she trust a human worker with such a claim? Still, when she looked at Lyra's shining eyes, something inside her softened. It was the same look her daughter had when she was a child, dreaming of the stars. Rumors began to spread beyond the mansion walls. The alien council heard whispers that a human was trying to heal where science had failed. They scoffed, laughing at the very thought. "Humans are weak," they said. "They are not healers. They are not scientists." But the whispers continued. Some staff swore they saw Lyra's toes twitch. Others said they caught her practicing movements late at night. The council grew uneasy. If a human succeeded where their greatest doctors had failed, their pride would shatter. Daniel continued without fear. He began showing Lyra simple exercises, guiding her hands, teaching her to press against resistance. Each small movement felt like a victory. Lyra's laughter returned to the halls. The sound shocked the servants, who had almost forgotten what it felt like. Even Arya, watching from the doorway, could not hide her tears. For years her wealth had bought silence. Now a human's simple words were bringing life back to her home. One night Daniel spoke to Arya directly. "Your daughter has strength inside her," he said calmly. "It only needs to be awakened." Arya frowned, torn between hope and doubt. "What can you give her that all the galaxy's doctors could not?" she asked. Daniel's answer was simple. "Faith and the will to fight." Arya turned away, but her hands trembled. No doctor had ever spoken with such quiet certainty. The council sent a warning the next day. If Arya allowed the human to continue, she would risk her reputation, her name, her honor, her power, all could be stripped. But when Arya looked at her daughter that evening, she saw her trying to move her legs on her own. Sweat on her face, fire in her eyes. For the first time, Arya felt fear, not of the council, but of losing this fragile spark of hope. The mansion was no longer silent. Each night carried suspense. Would Lyra take her first step, or would it all fade into disappointment once more? Arya stood between two worlds, one of power, wealth, and council rules, and one of love, faith, and human resilience. Her heart told her the truth. This human was different, and deep within her, she knew that the real miracle had only just begun. The night was quiet, the mansion glowing under pale moons. Most of the servants were asleep, yet in Lyra's chamber, two figures remained awake. Daniel stood beside her, his hands steady, his eyes calm. Lyra sat nervously in her floating chair, her heart racing faster than ever before. For years, she had dreamed of this moment, and now the human whispered that it was possible. Lady Arya entered the room slowly, her face pale with worry. She had agreed to allow one attempt, only one. Her mind warned her this was madness, her pride whispered this was dangerous, but her heart, her mother's heart, could not say no when she saw the fire in her daughter's eyes. "Do nothing that will harm her," she whispered, her voice sharp but trembling. Daniel bowed his head. "I promise." He asked for silence, no distractions. The room grew tense. Only the soft hum of the floating chair and the beating of 3 hearts filled the space. Daniel knelt before Lyra, gently placing his hands near her legs. The girl's eyes widened with fear, then hope. "Close your eyes," Daniel said softly. "Listen to me, not to your fear." Lyra obeyed, her small hands gripping the chair's edges. Daniel spoke, not in strange alien language, but in simple human words. "Your legs are yours. They belong to you. Feel them. Claim them." He pressed lightly against her knees, guiding her muscles. For the first time, Lyra felt a spark, like tiny lightning shooting through her nerves. She gasped, her body shaking. Arya rushed forward, but Daniel raised his hand calmly. "Trust her," he said. "Let her fight." Lyra's eyes opened wide, tears streaming. "Mother, I felt it again," she whispered. Her toes twitched, the faintest movement but real. Arya covered her mouth, disbelief and hope colliding inside her. She wanted to scream for joy, but fear held her silent. What if this is only a trick? What if it fades by morning, her mind cried. Yet her heart whispered, "This is real." Daniel continued, patient, steady, again and again. He guided her, speaking words of strength. The girl's muscles trembled, her body weak but awakening. She cried, not in pain but in joy. Each movement was small, almost invisible, yet to her it felt like climbing a mountain. She whispered to herself, "I can do it. I can move." Hours passed like minutes. When the attempt ended, Lyra collapsed back into her chair, exhausted but smiling. Her feet had moved, not by machine, not by trick, but by her own will. Daniel stepped back quietly, sweat on his forehead, his hands shaking from focus. He bowed his head to Arya. "This is only the beginning." Arya stared at him, her chest rising with heavy breaths. Her pride screamed at her to push him out, but her heart burned with a truth too bright to ignore. The next morning, the servants whispered in shock. They had seen Lyra moving her toes when she thought no one was watching. The alien doctors, when told, laughed and called it impossible. "Humans play tricks with words," they sneered. "This will not last." But behind closed doors, Arya could not stop trembling. She had witnessed it herself, and she could no longer lie to her own heart. That night, when the man, perhaps the answer does not come from riches or alien science, perhaps it comes from the will of a human. But deep in the city, the Alien Council had heard the rumors too. They were not pleased. Their pride was cracking. Their power was at risk. If the galaxy learned that a human had succeeded where their greatest minds had failed, it would shake the balance of power. Plans were already being made in secret chambers. The council would not allow this miracle to continue. And in the mansion, unaware of the storm building outside, Lyra fell asleep with a smile. For the first time in her life, she dreamed not of being trapped, but of standing, walking, running. The first attempt had awakened hope, and hope, once born, is harder to kill than any enemy. The mansion no longer felt like the same place. Lyra's laughter echoed in the halls, her eyes shining with life. The servants, once cold and silent, began to smile when they saw her. But outside the walls of the estate, darker whispers spread. The Alien Council had heard enough. In their tall marble chamber, leaders gathered, their faces stern and proud. "Impossible," one elder hissed. "No human can heal what our science has failed." Another slammed his fist against the table. "If this story spreads, our people will question us, our authority will weaken." The council leader leaned forward, his eyes burning. "We cannot allow this human to shame us. He must be removed," and the mother warned. The next morning, a delegation of council envoys arrived at Lady Arya's gates. Their ships glittered in the sky. Guards in shining armor stood ready. The mansion staff trembled, knowing that when the council spoke, disobedience meant ruin. Arya stood tall in the grand hall as the envoys entered. One elder bowed stiffly, then spoke in a voice sharp as steel. "Lady Arya, rumors reach us that a human worker in your home dares to claim miracles." Arya's chest tightened, but she did not show fear. "My daughter is improving," she said softly. "That is no rumor." The elder's eyes narrowed. "Then it is worse than we thought. You risk your reputation, your family name, your position in our society. Trusting a human with such matters is shameful. It makes you look desperate and weak." Arya's heart pounded, yet before she could reply, Lyra entered the hall. Her chair floated beside Daniel, who walked silently at her side. Gasps rippled through the envoys, for even from a distance they could see her legs trembling, twitching with signs of awakening strength. The elder turned pale, his voice breaking. This cannot be." Daniel said nothing, his calm eyes watching every movement. Arya stepped forward, her voice firm. "You call me weak for allowing hope, but weakness is denying what stands before your eyes. The council envoys scowled, their pride stung. They warned her again, remove the human, or you will face consequences. Then they left, their shadows stretching long across the mansion floor. That night, Arya could not sleep. She stood at her window staring at the stars. Her wealth had always shielded her from danger. But this was different. The council was not just powerful, they were merciless. If she defied them, she could lose everything, her name, her ships, even her mansion. But then she heard it, the sound of Lyra's laughter echoing down the corridor. It was small, soft, yet it carried more power than all the council's threats. Meanwhile, Daniel trained Lyra in secret. Each night he guided her, whispering strength into her soul. Your body remembers what your heart believes, he told her. Lyra's muscles ached. Sweat poured down her face, yet she pushed harder. She could now lift her foot for seconds, and though it was clumsy, it was real. Every step forward was a victory against fated self. The tension filled the mansion, hope and fear colliding in every corner. One evening, as Arya watched her daughter attempt to stand with Daniel's support, tears filled her eyes. She whispered to herself, I cannot stop this. No council decree, no threat, can silence what I see with my own eyes. At that moment, she made her choice. She would protect the human. She would protect her daughter's hope, no matter the cost. But in the city beyond, the council plotted. Their pride had been pierced, their power shaken. They swore that before long, the wealthy mother, the human and the child would learn the price of defiance. And so the storm drew closer. The mansion glowed with fragile hope, while shadows gathered outside, preparing to strike. The mansion felt heavy with tension. Every servant whispered of the council's anger. Every visitor brought warnings. Yet inside one small chamber, something greater than fear was growing. Hope had turned into fire, and that fire was about to break the silence of centuries. Daniel stood beside Lyra again, his hands steady, his eyes calm. Her legs trembled as she pushed against the floor. Sweat poured down her face. Her arms shook as she clung to his shoulders. Breathe. Do not fear, Daniel whispered. Your body remembers. Your soul commands. For weeks he had guided her, first with small movements, then with stronger ones. Every night the pain grew, but so did her strength. Now she stood on the edge of something impossible. Lady Arya watched from the doorway, her hands trembling, her heart torn. Part of her begged to stop this madness, to protect her child from disappointment, but another part, the part that loved fiercely, could not look away. Again, Daniel said, his voice steady. Lyra closed her eyes, her teeth clenched, her toes pressed against the smooth floor. Slowly, painfully, her knees straightened, her body rising. Her chair hovered behind her, unused for the first time in her life. The room grew silent, every breath held. Then it happened. Lyra stood, unsteady, trembling like a leaf in the wind, but standing. Her hands clutched Daniel's arms, her eyes wide with disbelief. I'm up, she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. Her mother gasped, her knees nearly buckling. She pressed her hand to her mouth, unable to speak. Daniel did not celebrate. He only nodded. Now one step, he said gently. The words struck like thunder in the room. A step, a thing so small, yet for Lyra it was a mountain. She shook her head at first, fear choking her. But then she saw her mother's face, wet with tears, and she knew she had to try. With Daniel holding her steady, Lyra shifted her weight. Her right foot slid forward, clumsy but real. The sound of her soul touching the floor rang louder than any storm. Arya dropped to her knees, sobbing into her hands. For years she had begged the universe for this moment, and now it was here. Her daughter had taken her first step. Lyra collapsed back into Daniel's arms, exhausted but smiling. Her body was weak, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. She whispered, I can do it again. I will walk. Daniel placed her gently back into her chair, his face calm, but his eyes shining. Yes, you will, he said, but this is only the beginning. Arya rushed forward, holding her daughter, kissing her forehead. My child, my precious child, she cried, her voice breaking. Lyra clung to her mother, whispering, I felt alive. I felt free. The room filled with their tears and laughter, a sound the mansion had not known in decades. But outside, shadows grew. The council's spies had seen, their reports already spreading. The news of a human miracle was too dangerous to ignore. The council gathered in secret, their voices shook. The human would be silenced, the mother punished, the girl hidden once more. Back inside the mansion, Arya did not care about the outside world. For her, only one truth existed now. Her daughter had stood. Her daughter had walked. Her wealth could never compare to that moment. As she held Lyra close, she whispered a vow. No council, no law, no power will take this from us. But in her heart, she knew the storm was coming, and when it arrived, she would have to choose between safety and freedom, between silence and truth. The breakthrough had come, but the battle was only beginning. The storm finally reached the mansion. Ships bearing the council's mark filled the skies, their engines roaring like thunder. Guards in shining armor marched through the gates, their weapons gleaming under the pale light. Servants trembled. Some hid. Others whispered prayers. The air itself seemed heavy, as if the mansion was about to collapse under the weight of power. Lady Arya stood in the grand hall, her gown glowing with silver threads, her face calm though her heart raced. Daniel stood near Lyra's chair, his hands resting gently on its handles, his expression unreadable. Lyra herself sat tall, her eyes steady, her spirit burning with a strength no one had seen before. The great doors opened and the council entered, their robes flowing, their faces carved with pride and scorn. Lady Arya, the council leader said coldly, you have disobeyed us. You have placed your faith in a human. You risk shame upon our people. Arya raised her chin, her voice strong. I placed my faith in hope and in my daughter's will. That is no shame. The chamber erupted in murmurs. The council members scowled, their pride wounded. One elder stepped forward, pointing at Daniel. This creature dares to claim power greater than our science. It is fraud. It is poison. He must be removed. The guards took a step closer, hands on their weapons. Arya's breath caught, her body stiffened, but before she could speak, a voice cut through the hall. Stop, Lyra said, her voice clear, steady, stronger than ever before. Every head turned, the room grew silent. Slowly, painfully, Lyra pushed herself up from her chair. Daniel's hand hovered near her, ready to steady, but she shook her head. Her knees trembled, her arms shook, but she did not fall. Step by step, she walked forward into the center of the hall. Each step echoed like thunder, louder than the council's ships, louder than their threats. Gasps filled the chamber, servants covered their mouths, guards froze in disbelief. The council leader's face turned pale, his voice breaking. This is not possible. But it was real. Every eye could see it. The wealthy alien daughter, paralyzed since birth, now stood tall on her own two legs. She turned, her eyes shining with tears, her gaze locked on her mother. Mother, I can walk, she whispered, her voice trembling but proud. Arya dropped the jeweled plate she held. It shattered across the marble floor. She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. My child, my beautiful child, she sobbed. The stars themselves could not give me what I see now. The servants wept openly, some dropping to the ground in awe. Even the guards, trained to obey without emotion, could not hide their shock. Daniel stood quietly at the edge, his face calm but his eyes glowed with quiet triumph. He had not spoken a word. He had let Lyra's strength speak for itself. The council, every servant, every guard, every visitor had seen the truth. The story would spread like fire, faster than the council could contain it. Arya rose, her voice steady, her tears shining like jewels. You threatened me. You tried to silence hope, but today you stand defeated by a single step, my daughter's step. Her words echoed, filling the hall with defiance. The council had no answer, their faces twisted with rage and fear. They turned and stormed out, their robes whipping behind them, but their silence betrayed them. For deep inside, they knew the truth. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. In the quiet that followed, Lyra leaned against her mother, her legs weak but her spirit strong. The servants cheered softly, tears still flowing. Daniel placed a hand over his heart, bowing his head. Arya held her daughter tightly, whispering, No council can take this moment from us. No power can erase what you have done. But she knew the battle was far from over. The council would strike back harder than before, and when they did, she would have to choose once more, to bow to their pride or to stand with humanity. The public reveal had shaken the stars. Now the galaxy itself waited to see what would come next. The council's departure left the mansion in uneasy silence. The broken pieces of the jeweled plates still lay scattered across the marble floor. Servants whispered in trembling voices. Guards stared at the door in disbelief. And in the center of it all, Lyra stood, her legs weak but alive, her spirit blazing like a star. Lady Arya held her daughter close, her tears wet against the girl's hair. She whispered, "You are my miracle. Nothing else matters." Daniel stood quietly nearby, his presence calm, his eyes sharp. He had not asked for thanks, he had not claimed glory, yet everyone in the room knew that without him, this moment would never have come. But beyond the mansion walls, the galaxy stirred. Whispers spread faster than any fleet. In markets, in palaces, in hidden corners of distant worlds, the story was told again and again. A paralyzed heiress had walked, and it was not alien science that saved her. It was a human. Some scoffed, calling it a lie. Others trembled, fearing it was true. But all listened, all wondered, and the seed of doubt grew inside the council's power. The council met in secret chambers, their pride shattered. Some wanted Daniel destroyed, erased before the story could spread. Others warned that killing him now would only prove humanity's strength. The leader pounded his fist. If one human can do this, what else are they hiding? What else can they awaken? Fear filled their voices, for the truth they had denied was now a shadow looming over their rule. Back in the mansion, Arya faced her own choice. She could beg forgiveness from the council, sacrifice Daniel, and return to safety, or she could stand against them, knowing the storm that would follow. Her hands shook. Her wealth and titles meant little now, but when she looked at her daughter, standing proudly on trembling legs, she knew the answer. She would never give up the miracle of hope, even if it cost her everything. Lyra herself felt the weight of destiny. She walked a few steps each day, each movement stronger than the last. Every time she fell, Daniel's hands caught her, steady and sure. Her laughter returned, filling the halls with warmth. The girl who once dreamed of walking under the stars now whispered, "One day I will run." And Daniel, silent and humble, carried the knowledge of something greater. He knew what the council feared most. Humans were not powerful because of weapons or fleets. They were powerful because they refused to surrender. Where others gave up, humans endured. Where others laughed, humans believed. And when all hope died, humans planted it again. One evening as the twin moons rose, Arya stood with Daniel on the balcony. "You have given my daughter life," she said softly, "but you have also given me a new truth. I was blind to what humanity carried inside." Daniel only nodded, his gaze fixed on the stars. "The galaxy thinks strength is found in wealth, in science, in armies," he said. "But true strength lives in the heart, and that is why they fear us." Arya felt a chill, not from the night air, but from the weight of his words. If the council feared one human, what would they do when more humans rose with the same power? She looked back at her daughter, walking slowly across the hall with servants cheering softly. Her eyes burned with pride and defiance. "They will learn," she whispered, "and they will never laugh at humanity again." And so the story of a wealthy alien mother and her once paralyzed daughter spread across the stars, not as a tale of riches, not as a tale of alien science, but as proof that humans carried something no empire could control. A power hidden not in machines, but in the human spirit. A power that could break chains, heal wounds, and defy even the proudest councils. The galaxy would never be the same, because one human had reminded them all that hope, once awakened, could never again be silenced.